Okay, normally I'd be shooting an unscripted video for the next of my rant series, but for this one I really can't because I'll be reviewing a new album that I don't know inside and out yet. And I don't want to lose my place, begin rambling, or forget all of the song titles. So this one is actually scripted. This is the return of Alice Cooper. It's not just a new Alice Cooper album, this is something special. It's the first Alice Cooper band album since 1975. And this includes Alice himself, drummer Neal Smith, bassist Dennis Dunaway, and guitarist and keyboardist Michael Bruce. And the only original member not involved is the late, great, and seriously underrated guitarist Glenn Buxton. But even he makes an appearance on the album through some rescued old demo tracks. And Bob Ezrin, who produced several of the early Cooper band albums, as well as later Cooper solo albums, including Welcome to My Nightmare and From the Inside, is also on board, and his influence really shows in all the good ways. So I've been listening to a lot of Alice Cooper since spring break, and I've gotten close to all the early albums again. Some, like Pretty's for You and Killer, I haven't heard since high school probably. And why I ever lost track of Killer, I'll never figure out because it's a beast of a record and it may be my favorite of all the old albums. Anyway, I've refamiliarized myself with all of the different phases of Alice Cooper. And this album, The Return of Alice Cooper, revisits and acknowledges each of those phases of the band's evolution. There are a couple songs which would be right at home on the solo Alice albums, but overall this album sounds and feels, especially due to Dennis Dunaway's signature bass playing, like old school Alice Cooper all the way. Now, I wish I owned this in some physical medium, particularly vinyl, simply because the album cover looks like it could be the movie poster from an old Universal monster flick, or it could be the front cover of an old Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. I used to love that magazine as a kid. Anyway, as of right now, Spotify is my only access to this album, but I will be buying a physical copy soon. Also, due to time constraints and because of issues of copyright claims, I won't be playing snippets of any songs. So keep that in mind. But here are my thoughts on this album track by track. Okay, we start off with the title track, Black Mamba. It was the first single and was released earlier in the summer. I was immediately struck by Dunaway's bass line, fat, groovy, and rockin' hard. The vibe of the song as a whole reminds me of the Black Widow from Welcome to My Nightmare. It's threatening, seductive, and just plain old black and white horror movie fun. Fun fact, Robbie Krieger from The Doors plays lead guitar on this track, lending it a quite mysterious and menacing vibe. Fun fact within a fun fact, Ray Manzarek played keys on the Cooper band track Black Juju from the album Love It to Death. So that's two members of The Doors featured on two different Cooper band albums. In other words, this is everything I could hope for in an Alice Cooper band cut. It's quite strong, ambitious, and a very impressive opening track for a band that hasn't existed in 50 years. Okay, I'll be honest, The Wild Ones just doesn't do it for me. It's not really a bad song, but it reminds me of a lead-off track from the debut album of a mid to late 80s hard rock band whose first single is supposed to announce to an unsuspecting world just how badass this band is with their bikes and stuff. In other words, it's a try-hard type of tune, something the Alice Cooper band doesn't have to do. Now, there's solid playing and Alice's voice sounds great, but it just doesn't speak to me. So Up All Night took a bit of time to grow on me. At first I thought it was just another try-hard song which boasts about one's sexual prowess. And this is where the early Zappa influence on the Cooper band comes into play. So the protagonist is visiting a prostitute, but he's such an overnight sensation, which is the title of the classic Zappa album, that she should be paying him. Also, lyrically, this one seems to be an homage to the Zappa tune Dynamo Hum. Interestingly, from the album Overnight Sensation. So, there's no taking this song too seriously. You have to let it stew in your ears a little bit and let the tongue-in-cheekery settle in. Obviously, this has concert sing-along written all over it, and that's ultimately a good thing. Okay, Kill the Flies is in a multiple-way tie for my favorite song from this album. And after multiple listenings, I wonder if there's any connection between this song and the song Halo of Flies from the album Killer. So, anytime an Alice Cooper tune starts out with broken down merry-go-round type music, you know you're in for a weird experience. And quite simply, this song is about a patient in an insane asylum who's driven even further into insanity by a swarm of flies who will not let him be. And like a lot of Cooper Band tunes, Kill the Flies uses something I'm calling episodic escalation, a device to drive the narrative forward. And I am considering doing an entire video on this exact topic, so if you're interested in stuff like this, keep your eyes open. So how does this type of escalation work? Well, consider the layout of the chorus. Flies. These damn flies. I hate these flies. Gonna kill the flies. So in each of these four statements or episodes, we go from an initial statement of fact, flies, to a curse, these damn flies, a declaration of enmity, I hate these flies, to a violent conclusion, kill the flies. And this type of escalation is also used in the verses of Welcome to My Nightmare, and you can also find it in the outro chorus to Public Animal Number 9. And it simply allows the lyrics in the band to push from normal reactive boundaries into the absurd. And this is that Dada space where Zappa, Captain Beefheart, Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd, and of course the Alice Cooper Band excel. One last thing, the doo-wop background vocals and the surf tom-tom beat in the pre-choruses only add to the weirdness. Okay, One Night Stand is another runner-up for favorite song off this album. And this one caught me totally by surprise. I got about a minute or so into the song and thought, boy, this sure sounds familiar. And then it hit me. It sounds like Bauhaus. Well, actually, Bauhaus sounds a lot like early Bowie and the Alice Cooper Band. But the guitar riffs in One Night Stand sound like classic Daniel Ash. And at times, Alice's voice sounds like Peter Murphy. And I know, I'm saying it all backwards and it seems all out of time, but it simply illustrates cycles of influence. In other words, A influences B, which in turn then re-influences A, and so on and so forth. Now, Dennis Dunaway's bass line actually reminds me more of a Peter Hook bass line from a Joy Division record than Bauhaus. But again, this helps underscore that this tune quite resembles early British post-punk. And by the way, there's another interesting post-punk connection, and it's Skeletal Family's cover of the Cooper Band's Black Juju from their album Burning Oil. So anyway, One Night Stand is about a man who is seduced by a murderous woman who is unaware that she is being seduced by that same murderous man. Anyway, pay attention to the episodic escalation. Try saying that 5 times real fast. That occurs from verse to verse. This tune is rockin', moody, clever, and downright chilling. One of the best on the album. Blood on the Sun is actually the third contestant for my favorite song off of this album. On the first listen, I liked it all right. The music's driving, textured, and most importantly, epic. Featuring soaring guitar leads and Neal Smith's regimental, rudimental drum stylings. And on the second listen, snippets of the lyrics began to grab me. Here are some examples. A gathering of eagles, they flew alone, hunters out for killing. Another one, it was The Rising Sun is Burning. There are mentions of soldiers of fortune, flying tigers 12 o'clock high, 1 hour to 0, and all the young men between heaven and hell. And obviously these aren't the entire lyrics to the song. These are just some key phrases that I initially picked up on. And then it all came together and struck me. This song is about Claire Chennault's Flying Tigers, a group of mostly American pilots who flew Curtiss P-40 Warhawks. Those are the World War II planes with the shark faces on the nose cones. Anyway, they flew the Curtiss Warhawks against Japan in the Second Sino-Japanese War. And I've been watching this great documentary series on the history of all summer called Dogfights. And the episode on the Flying Tigers is probably my favorite of the whole series. Anyway, this is not what I expected from an Alice Cooper tune. This is a sincere, heartfelt tribute to a band of mercenary American pilots who went on to fight with great success in the Pacific Theater at the outbreak of World War II. Crap That Gets in the Way of Your Dreams is a bit like an inversion in some ways of the Frank Zappa song Joe's Garage. In Joe's Garage, the band practices in the garage. I mean, imagine that. And they get better and better, eventually becoming big in their hometown, which I'm assuming is LA because it's a Zappa tune. They eventually make it big, They begin touring and they survive the onslaught of several different musical trends. Now, in Crap That Gets in the Way of Your Dreams, love that title by the way, our protagonist struggles to do anything productive as a musician other than actually writing the next song. Ultimately, he gets nowhere. He neglects his day-to-day tasks, such as doing laundry and interacting with his possibly dead wife. And in the end, he considers burying his possibly dead wife, only to resume writing the next song. The entire song shows a lot of 60s British rock influence as it's built upon a very kinksy guitar riff, which is exactly the kind of music that a 65-year-old rock star wannabe would have been playing in his mom's garage as a kid. Now, it's a virtue to be determined and pursue your dreams with great vigor. And I know I don't even really need to say this. I will, though. But this is ridiculous. And this is that point of Dada that all of the good Mother's tunes eventually reach. Ultimately, it's a neat little morality play about keeping ourselves grounded as we pursue loftier goals. And every aspiring musician should be forced to listen to this song. Famous Face is a balls-out rocker that sounds like high school to me, 85 to 88. It has a lot of that classic mid-80s Sunset Strip swagger, even as it mocks Los Angeles, celebrity, influencer, and victim culture. And Alice sings, "You want more when you've had too much, never knowing when enough's enough. You can't stop because you're such a lush, and then you cry because you got it rough." This is pretty direct and damning stuff. And I couldn't help but think of Billy Joel's Big Shot as I heard this for the first time. Very similar sentiments. But Big Shot is more about chasing money, power, and influence by putting on airs. Whereas Famous Face illustrates how people we assume are sophisticated because they already have money, power, and influence are actually usually just a bunch of filthy, stupid, vapid morons trying to appear intelligent and relevant. Dunning-Kruger, anyone? I wasn't really a fan of this one at first, but it's really grown on me. I'd love to hear this one live. There's a great groove and some real slippery, dirty guitar work. So Money Screams is a solid, though slightly formulaic song. It does, however, have a banging chorus with impeccable vocal harmonies and some nice grindy guitar work. The two best things I can say about this one is that I love it when Alice sings in Vincent's natural voice, without the nasally sneer. And some of my all-time favorite Alice Cooper moments are when he sings in his natural voice. Things like How You Gonna See Me Now, the verses of Desperado, The Quiet Room, Millie and Billy, and Only Women Bleed. Simply because you can hear that Alice, Vincent, can really, really sing. Also, I love that the last thing you hear before the fade out of this song is Alice singing, "You're a $1 billion baby," an obvious reference to the album and song of the same name. Okay, I'm not sure if What a Sid is a reference to Syd Barrett or not. Now, I know that the early Cooper band appeared several times with the Pink Floyd, and that apparently Glenn Buxton was a big fan of Syd's guitar playing. Now, the subject of this song does appear to be a quirky, self-absorbed, and self-destructive musician, but I still don't feel comfortable speculating that this song is actually about Syd Barrett. The title actually makes me think that the figure of Syd Barrett has actually been recast as a character archetype, and that the subject of the song is actually just a musician with Syd Barrett complex. Strangely, this is one of my favorite type of Cooper band tunes. I always love it when the band flexes a bit and shows that they can play in several different styles, including straight ahead swing and cabaret styles. In this case, the band cops a really cool film noir style minor swing. I'm not sure who's playing the guitar solo on this cut, but I'm catching some serious Barney Kessel or Kenny Burrell vibes. This is an outstanding tune, and it's the fourth song vying for the title of my favorite song from this album. Intergalactic Vagabond Blues really reminds me of I Ain't Done Wrong from the Yardbirds album For Your Love. Now, here's where I feel really stupid, and hopefully you'll feel really stupid for me. 2 songs later, on this very record, The Return of Alice Cooper, is a cover of I Ain't Done Wrong, the song it reminds me of. So why did this song remind me of an old song that's actually covered on this album, but I didn't notice it? I recognized immediately that these two tunes had real Yardbird vibes, but I flaked out identifying a song I used to listen to, and I feel like a moron. Now, in my own defense, I don't think I've listened to the For Your Love album in 15 years or so. So please pardon my oversight. Okay, embarrassment done. So this is a tune of an alien abduction love affair full of clever wordplay, balls to the wall groove, salty heart blowing, and I'm assuming that's Alice, and some absolutely fire-breathing guitar solos. Overall, it sounds a lot like the mutant love child of the Yardbirds and an early 70s incarnation of the Mothers. And speaking of Zappa, one of the lyrics states, "I got cosmic debris in my shoes," quoting a line from the classic Zappa tune, you guessed it, Cosmic Debris. This is another insanely fun song that's in the running for favorite song from this album. So what happened to you? What the hell is that ruckus that opens up this song? Now, it's obviously a guitar through a cranked amp with a wah pedal, but I've never been able to create anything that sounds even remotely like what's coming out of the speakers. This is the tune that features the late Glenn Buxton. And I'm not sure what guitar parts were rescued tracks from old recordings, but I can definitely picture Glenn with his SG and his Marshall raising such a gloriously noisy racket. A lot of the guitar breaks also sound a lot like Buxton. So if anyone knows anything about the production of this song, I'd really appreciate it if you'd share. Now, if I just kind of close my eyes and picture a different face, this sounds quite a bit to me like a Cheap Trick tune. I can totally reimagine Robin Zander singing this one, and the unhinged guitar work is reminiscent of Rick Nielsen's, noisiest screeds from the 70s, and the solos all have that mid to late 70s freewheeling recklessness, which makes me think the breaks are indeed Glenn. And then the drumming is straight out of the Bunny Carlos playbook. Not saying this should be a Cheap Trick tune, because I love it as it is, but I think it would be grand if Cheap Trick did play this, because they would nail it. Anyway, this is the last of the runners-up for my favorite song on this album. Okay, I ain't done wrong. The source of my embarrassment for this review. I already mentioned this one earlier, so all I'm really going to say is that this is a fun, rollicking cover that actually whomps the Yardbirds original. I know, sacrilege. Don't misunderstand, I love the Yardbirds, especially the Beck era, but the extended improvisational workouts on this cover go far beyond the scope of the original recording. And it just makes you think, man, if only Jeff would have lived long enough to appear on this recording. This is the album closer. See you on the other side. I'm not a big fan of hard rock ballads. There are exceptions like Kiss's I Still Love You, Cheap Trick's Mandocello, Ozzy's Tonight. You get the idea. And for the most part, I'm not a fan of this one. Again, it's not a bad song. It just doesn't hit me in the right spot. I like the sentiment of remembering friends who have passed, especially in the shadow of Ozzy's recent passing. But I don't like the big production. It feels too much like Kiss's God Gave Rock and Roll to You. I don't like the line, "We'll rock and roll the night away." It sounds a little trite and forced. But when Alice follows that up simply by saying, "See you there," he said it all. The song itself isn't bad. I just like to have heard it in a slightly rawer setting. I think it would have hit harder. Overall, though, as far as hard rock ballads go, I wouldn't hit the skip button. So, overall, what do I think of the return of Alice Cooper? I think it's freaking great. I love the fact that you can hear elements of the early, middle, and late periods of the group throughout the entire record. I do think in the case of several songs, Black Mamba, I Ain't Done Wrong, One Night Stand, Kill the Flies, modern production methods have added a layer of power to the group which may have been missing in some of the 70s recordings. I know everyone in the band is getting up there age-wise, so I'm glad to hear them bring it together at least one more time. And you know what? I'm hoping they have another one left in them. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I do here. Hit the notification bell so you'll always know when a new episode drops, and feel free to leave comments or any suggestions for topics you might like to see in some future videos. Also, keep your eyes open for String 'em Up Shorts, where I address various good guitaring ideas in 3 minutes or less. Anyway, my name's Dave Holland, and thanks for watching String 'em Up. Have fun, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.